Grazie, mille grazie a tutti, a professore Paolo Heritier per l'invito a partecipare a questo meraviglioso evento, a professore Fernando Bellelli, Giovanna per la cura impeccabile. Con il vostro permesso, ora parlerò in inglese. Ok? Grazie. Logos at Play is an English adaptation of Andrew Louth of the Greek syntax paisei gar logos, from Gregory Nazianz's Poemata Moralia, composed in 381, a reflection upon the wonders in nature, in which nature itself and creation becomes the stage for a play, in which he, Logos, engages itself as the maker of the world. And I want to start with two lines from the poem, from where I want to unfold my analysis. For the Logos on high plays in all sorts of modes, mingling with his world here and there as he wishes, as he so desires. As a highly skilled rhetorician of his time, Gregory the theologian, Gregory Nazianzen, was certainly aware of Plato metaphors of humanity as a divine plaything. But the most relevant source of Gregory's poetic line might be Heraclitus' vision of time, Aion, as a child who plays moving his paws, ruling thus the human existence. Gregory's playing Logos is not about fatalism, however, but about the Logos playfully engaged in the perennial flux of cosmic becoming. A similar vision, no less intriguing, we find in another poem of Gregory Nazianzen's Poemata Arcana about the Word of God who steers the course of the universe with a remarkable agility, which made Maximum the Confessor to refer to Logos as the wrestler. I develop actually all this discussion in a chapter in my book Elemental Chorology, and also going deeper with Maximum the Confessor's interpretation. But here, on the occasion of the celebration of the Council of Nicaea, I looked backwards to the 4th century, trying to figure out some connections with Gregory Nazianzen's poems. Most conspicuously, in his De Incarnatione, Athanasius of Alexandria, the architectural mind, the theologian of Nicaea's council, in his search to demonstrate the divinity of the Word, takes up what he calls the paradox, thauma, the wonder, to demonstrate the divinity and showing that the Word was not hedged in his own human body, that his body was not a limitation, and that was the wonder, the thauma, that he was both in it, in the body, but also in all things, sustaining the life of the universe while resting also in the Father. He opens his De Incarnatione, the incarnation of the Word, with chapter 1 on creation and the fall, with the following statement, and I quote, "We will begin then with the creation of the Word and with God, its maker. For the fact is that we must grasp this. The renewal of creation has been wrapped by the self-same Word. who made it in the beginning. And I close the quotation. In his theological argumentation of the word's divinity, Athanasius promotes the idea that, I quote, by God's grace, the word of the Father is himself, theotiteros, tou logu tou patros, that all things that are owe their being to his will and power, and that it is through him that the Father gives order to creation. The self-revealing of the Word is present in every single dimension. All things has been filled with his knowledge of God. And I close the quotation. Creation is for Athanasius an act of revelation through the divine works performed by God through his Son, and notably by his grace, gar hariti theu, which intrinsically links to the Holy Spirit. Here we have, from the start in the Incarnation, what is called a demonstration of cosmic Trinitarian and Christological perichoresis in the doctrinal exposition of the divinity of Christ and the omnipresence of God as he intersects with all creation. The Athanasian Logos pervades entirely the world with his divinity, theotetas, and presence manifest as a theophany. Logos' divine agency, I argue, bears a clear resemblance to Nazianz's vision of the demiurgic mingling with the world, where the Greek is kyrno, it's that mixture with the world. This divine interaction, as it appears, is a perichoretic permeation in the literal sense of the word perichoresis, which means to permeate, interpenetrate, which is no less playful than Gregory's playing logos. Athanasius postulates, and I quote, being the word so far from being himself contained by anything, he, the logos, actually contained all things himself. Present everywhere in creation, he is nevertheless distinct in being from it, giving life to all containing, and he is himself the uncontained, very playfully, existing, however, solely in his Father. The playful side of Athanasius' peroration is a paradox. In the word pray, depicting the perplexing spacing of logos containing while remaining uncontained, one is reminded of Plato's chorological discourse on the original matrix of creation of the world from his Timaeus. But Athanasius does not name it chora. He uses the word periehein, akin to the Latin continere, meaning containing, encompassing, or even embracing. Perieho, which famously Maxim of Confessor in 7th century incorporated in his derivative term perichoresis, particularly in what he calls God's embrace of creation, or the interpenetration of divine and created nature. Athanasius used the concept perichoresis even before the word perichoresis, the term we consecrated. Actually, that was Nazianz's first time using the term. Later, right, in the 4th century. So he used it before the technical word was established in theology. And here, before I finish this little part, one more thing about the playing logos mingling with the world as he so desires in Nazianz's poem, which seems to me to tell us something more that resonates in the passionate outreach of the world in sheer yearning that is evoked in Pseudo-Dionysus in Divine Nomine, which actually, in his interpretation of Nazianzus, Maximum the confessor uses. And I quote that beautiful passage. In the overflow of his passionate goodness, eroticis agathothetos, God is drawn outside himself in his provident care for everything. Beguiled, as it were, by his sound goodness, love, and sheer yearning, eroti, the word, he is enticed away from his dwelling place, above and beyond all things, condescending to penetrate all things according to an ecstatic and supernatural power, wherewith he can still remain with himself. Gregory's logos at play was not just musing on the wonders of creation, just like Athanasius, but he was saying something profound about the nature of the logos activity in the world and his divine incarnation. His divine operation was ecstatic, like an embrace, to catch up with Maxim the Confessor, speaking about Perichoresis. I want to move now to another element, crucial element from the credo after the divinity of Christ, and that is the Nicene theology of light, which I follow further. Nicene theology of light, as exposed in the Creed, takes us further to unveil God's creation, God's creative power of light, the first act of Logos. Light was the first manifestation of sensible reality, but at the heart of the Trinitarian and Christological debate of the Nicene theology of light was not the physical interpretation of light, but the metaphysical. The metaphysics of light was inherently incarnational. The Nicene light language in the Creed, light from light, was in this respect not arbitrary. The conceptualization of specific concept of light to oppose the imprecise use in the Arian discussion, the discourse, it was therefore paramount. And here the contribution was the contribution of Athanasius. In his Ad Serapionem, Athanasius provides a terminology distinguishing between light, phos, and radiance, apavgasma. And it's more about that, but I will focus just on this relation. Employing the concepts of radiance of God and the brightness applied to the sun, Athanasius demonstrates the eternal coexistence of the Father and the Son, refuting the Arian position that claimed that once before the generation and creation of the Son, God the light had had no radiance or ray. There was when he was not. Athanasius sustains that there is no separation between God, light, from the eternal radiance, the Logos, that is his natural offspring. The Logos of light is not just the first Logos of creation, but also the first embodied Logos. To clarify this complicated doctrinal aspect, I will bring an intriguing and fascinating passage from Basil's letter 38 to his brother Gregory of Nyssa. Perhaps it's Gregory Nyssa speaking, the theologian no more than I do. I should have shown you that, I apologize. But anyone, okay. That was supposed to be seen before. But so the letter 38 of Basil the Great, or Nazianz. Basil's thesis is that an analogy of the theological matters concerning the relationship between the Son and the Father as separate and conjoined, could be found in objects perceptible to senses. The analogy of rainbow, iris, right? The phenomenon one experiences in springtime explains the relationship between light and radiance that corresponds to the relationship between the Father and the Son. The light of sun, the source, directly casts its orb on some rainy cloud, and its radiance is reflected back. The result is a bending return on the light upon itself. This double refraction, actually which science validates, gives rise to colors of the ray in the transparent air. In Basil's analogy of rainbow applied to the relationship between God, light, and his Son, the radiance, a space is circumscribed by the bending brilliance on ray, which is a conspicuous space, actually, in which, as Basil the Great comments, there is no intervening extension in space that divides light, the source, from its brilliance, the ray, the sun. And this is the metaxy, an interval, a space, a conspicuous space of light, a transparent space in between that fills the space between a fiery source and the source of the cloud. But as Basil claims also, light, and I quote, light travels in no interval of time. Umen parataesis, tini diastematici. So no time, not only space, but no time interrupts the medium's transparency activated by light that enters the medium, becoming bright. I call this phenomenal space, the transparent interval, metaxy of light, the iris chorology, for the sake of chorology. It's a space and time that offers this interval, this metaxy of light, a special presence. In like manners, argues Basil the Great, the divine dogma operates. As in the rainbow, in iris, the radiance goes from the source, the sun, and is reflected back. So it goes and then goes back to the Father, to the source. Likewise, the sun radiance descends in his condensance to remain always with the Father, going back. There is no space, there is no time between the light and the radiance. It's instantaneously, right? And these are one of the argumentation about that never departing from Father of the Son. And now, by way of exemplification and making more friendly and more, well, for those less skilled theologian like myself, but I made all the efforts with great love. I would like, as a Byzantinist, I want to inquire and to make an attempt to read one of the earliest Byzantine image, a theophany, manifestation of light manifestation, a typology that appears late 4th century, and it spreads around, but the image that I'm going to show you, it is one of the earliest and impeccably preserved in in Latomo Hagios David in Thessaloniki, and is placed in the most sacred part of the sanctuary in a chorological disposition. Chora space will come in that well-known special space in the liturgical space, which is, in my way, eminently chorological. Latomo Theophany is, like I said, the earliest, around end 4th century, beginning of 5th century. The circular space of its place literally depicts a prophecy. Ezekiel prophesies via vision of his encounter with God. The source, the Son, encountering the Father, as it was imagined. Something that looked, well, and that vision was something that looked like fire enclosed all around. In the central part of the mosaic, as described in the prophecy, seated about the likeness of the God was something that seemed like a human form, said Ezekiel. The mosaic shows the singular depiction of the Logos, Christ Emmanuel, on the rainbow, as prophesied. And I quote, like the bow in the cloud on a rainy day, such was the appearance of the splendor of all around. The bright circular vision unfolds its dynamic, dispersing its radiance in the air as in the rainbow. Basil the Great speaks a lot, and he also, in the same letter, make the argumentation to differentiate between ousia and hypostasis, on which I am not, I am finished, yes. The bright circular vision unfolds with dispersion, like in the rainbow, of the many rays and colors and variegated manifestation of light. Within the circular expanse of the mandorla, Christ Emmanuel sits on the luminous rainbow like a throne. His figure stands in front of the cloud as if protecting our vision from the dazzling theophany behind him. His body tilts forward towards us, wrapped in the brilliance of his shimmering dress. What the prophet said, that he saw, it was not God, not even God's glory, but he said this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Father. And then he fell down on the ground, dazzled. For man can now bear the vision of God's glory, but always through the transparent beam, like a cloud through which the light on sun could be seen, commented St. Paul. The mosaic shows exactly this, Christ's incarnated body as a transparent cloud in the highest degree. I argue this is the image of Logos, the bright cloud, the theandric image, the Nicene incredible image of God-man that was prophesied. Thank you.